And I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 159 with Shoshana. What have you been reading? I am reading this book, Sexism and Sensibility by Joanne Finkelstein, PhD, who has joined me here for a poem. I can't remember which number. Anyway, this is a great book. It's the subtitle is Raising Empowered, Resilient Girls in the Modern World. And I think it's a great read, regardless if you have daughters or you have children, because it's also making me think about my experiences and my self-talk and my reparenting of myself and how I would have liked to have been treated and how I still deserve to be treated, and then also how like the patriarchy is not good for anyone. And it's really I really hey yay
Yay.
that went fairly well,
Good.
and I'm grateful. How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. You were in the middle of something.
Oh, I always start because there's this lag time between when I start and the person joins me. So I always talk about what I'm reading, and I'm reading this book, Sexism and Sensibility by Joanne Finkelstein. And it's about raising girls. And I was just saying that even if you don't have kids, I think it's a great read because it's like, I'm reparenting myself always. And um, it's a good reminder of like how I would have liked things to go, and how I would have liked people to talk to me when things didn't go well.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder. Like patriarchy is not good for anyone. So how are you?
I'm raising a son, so I'm on the
Same.
other side of the fence a bit, although, you know, sexuality is very fluid.
Yes.
And yeah, also dismantling misogyny and patriarchy in a young man, you know.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. You have a son as well?
I do. I have two. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, you are a mom. You got girls, you
Oh
got
no, I don't
boys, you got
have any girls. No girls, just boys.
okay.
Hmm.
This is your own. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. No, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I think, and all the like toxic masculinity, it's not great for women. It's not great for men either. And I notice it a lot with,
Yeah.
when I had younger children, how certain boys would be treated. And do you think like, oh, but it's okay for them to cry and feel heard and have feelings. Um, that's why it's not good for anyone, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, right up there with white
yeah,
supremacy.
none of these systems are actually good for
Nope.
even those who seem to be benefiting from them. Um, there's no
Yeah.
benefits really. Um, so anything you'd like to say before you read your poem?
Oh, so we do it at first. So I tried to watch some, and I wasn't sure if it was something that's more towards the end, or so we start off with it.
I mean, it's up to you. Usually we do because then we talk about it. But sometimes I think people are a little nervous, so we talk about other things and then we do it. It's really up to you.
Yeah.
That's
No, I'm happy to do it.
okay.
Absolutely. Right on. I am from. I am from chewing tart clovers by the tire swing, musty blankets in pickups, satchels of cinnamon apple potpourri, and fumes of gasoline. From Marlboro Reds and Mickey D's. I am from twining, purring, chittering, howling on cigarette-singed sofas, a meadow of tiny craters at their feet, the swooped curve of Mama's neck knotted out, like a sandhill crane bowing to eat, with forgotten squares, smoldering kisses on upholstery. I am from lemon-striped marble pothos etched across us, plants she tended in spite of the decay, her green thumb never grayed. I am from long drives to nowhere, the scorched South Bronx, circa 1986, and chomped nails to the quick from Mama and Aunt Lean. I'm from pawn shops and hustle, from locked doors and unkept promise, from sweeping everything under the rug and too many skeletons to keep, from sleeping in the gutter you wake up and shit, to story of my goddamn life, and I'll smack you into next week. I'm from the ruin of Irish Roman Catholic despair, the other half unknown to me, save for being the only Jew, with a father who wasn't there until he was and left again. I'm from the Poconos of Pennsylvania, from the Dubliners' 7 drunken nights on St. Paddy's Day, the constant pulse of music played beyond the din of life, from microwave TV dinners, ramen, and grape jelly on saltines, Pepsi swigged from 2-liter bottles, and government subsidies. From the murder of my namesake, Aunt Diane, stabbed with the letter opener by her speed-fiend boyfriend 107 times. He pled insanity. After burying her sister, a closed casket at the wake, Mama was saddled with grief no man, drug, or child could sate. She fled home and school at 15, reeling down the bruised plum tracks of her underarms to the underworld where she bore her 3 babies, tensile as can be. The stories survive in their retelling. The rest has been lost. Memories thrum within and alongside us as ghosts, hunches, deja vu, and nascent knowing, stitched into our psyche, parallel to our current lives. Only if we forget will they die. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so powerful, Shoshana.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to say thank you for feeling safe enough to share all of that, because that was a lot of really raw thing. I mean, so much there. The murder of your aunt. I'm always really uh, gutted by those stories. Because I think for anybody who's been in any kind of violent situation or addictive, you know, like how that's just a reality that could have occurred. And I mean, it's like there, you know, just beyond the curtain. Um, and that and that your aunt didn't survive. Um, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. She was just another victim of femicide, you
Yeah.
know, and talk about misogyny and
Yeah.
patriarchy,
Right? Yeah.
um, you know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. And so
Yeah,
horrendous.
it is.
I mean, not that there's a good way to die, but I mean, that's just such a horrendous way.
Yeah, I have a line in one of my writings about how my grandmother won the gold Olympics in trauma with that,
Right. Yeah, because losing a child. Yeah.
burying a child.
Yeah.
is already pretty high. And
Right.
then to a death like that,
Mhm.
and she was 19, so
I know that is also really hard.
so
Yeah.
young. Reason I The main reason I included that detail is because such it's such a root, it's
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
core wound
For sure.
for my mother, who's now deceased. Um, and the fact that she gave it as my middle name, I was her first daughter.
Mhm.
Um, it that trauma, that loss, that horror haunted her, and
Of
by
course.
extension, her children,
Yeah.
um, all of our
Hmm.
lives. So you had to include that.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely where you're from. I mean, it's in your name, but also like it's just, and I think to me, something that I return to in my writing in my life is how do people talk about these things without them becoming these heavy weights that you carry? I mean, I think obviously if your mother had had the opportunity to heal that wound, she would have been able to engage with it in a different way. Um, but it's like you hear stories of people who would have never told you. Like it just would have been a and that's no good either. Like
Mm-hmm.
having that because she has the trauma, whether she's talking about it or not. So it's just it's heavy.
Oh yeah, yeah, um, and then she buried her brother, who accidentally overdosed at
Oh Lord.
29, and she was like 25 or something like that. So, but point being, like, although I was told these things, it was mostly through just there were no boundaries, so
Right.
everything was
Right.
free for, right?
Yep.
So,
Hmm.
so chaotic. So I learned it through eavesdropping, through just being around, um, rather than having a sit down, like, direct intelligent conversation or like any real emotional
Hmm.
intimacy.
Hmm.
Um, that was not part of the system. Uh,
So were you like vigilant, like trying to gain as much data as possible? Because that's certainly how I was. Like it's just taken me a while in my adult life to not want all the information all the time.
yeah.
Like this isn't healthy for me and why do I care? But at that age I really felt like, oh, I gotta know everything and somehow this will all make sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to be, in order to survive those environments, you have to be extremely hyper vigilant
Hmm.
and hyper aroused and cued into everything that is happening.
Yeah.
uh, the emotional
Yeah.
qualities, the body language, all of it, to stay, to create some semblance of safety and control in worlds that are the opposite of those
Right.
things,
Right.
right? But as children, you crave that so much, so you adapt
Yeah.
and figure out how to navigate that world.
And
Hmm.
then you're permanently exhausted later.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it like it deprives you of being a child,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, wonder, play, safety,
Hmm.
being dependent,
Innocence.
all of that. It,
Hmm.
all of that gets taken in those environments.
Yeah.
Mhm. But I mean, I think that I was trying to, thinking about meaning making or the takeaway, reflection.
Hmm.
That that was part of my effort to do that. Somewhat was with the line about where she bore her three babies, tensile as can be. Like, that is what we got from that, right? Whether we wanted it or not,
Hmm.
whether there was any consent, of course there wasn't. But it makes you, if you let it and if you do your healing and your work, it makes you an extremely resilient human
Yeah. If you
growing.
survive, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
if you
mean,
get to the other side, because I think you speak about your mother and her siblings, and I think a lot of people don't make it to the other side, even if they do physically survive, and I know there's a conversation around the word survivor for this reason. And I
yeah.
and I get it. I don't know a better word. Like I would use a better word. I don't know what it is, but I do understand the conversation around it because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who physically survived, but
Hmm.
but didn't emotionally really,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's why I became a clinical social
yeah,
worker.
yeah,
Was I'm going to figure myself out. I'm
yeah,
going to heal. I'm going to heal
yeah.
myself.
Hmm.
Um, and like, I don't regret that at all, but that was the motivation as a person in my mid 20s, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
But yeah, you bring up an interesting topic. I am not a big fan of the term
So what
survivor.
do you say?
Warrior,
Hmm.
or like like freedom fighter,
So then do
especially.
you feel the need to qualify it, or you just say it and like leave it, that's their problem?
Yeah, it's so. I, I'm like actively configuring in my mind because I'm working on a piece
Mm,
around that
mm,
touches on this.
mm,
Um, I, I love what people have done with the term. People have reclaimed it.
mm.
People went from victim to
Yeah.
survivor. So I think there's positive elements. It's just it doesn't resonate for me. I
Well, it
don't.
doesn't feel like enough, right?
It doesn't feel like enough. It feels, to me, it actually has a quality, and I know this is not the case for everybody, but language is powerful. We got to find what works for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Quality of um, disempowerment to
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
using like I want to do more than survive. I
For
want to
sure.
thrive. I want to
Yeah.
live my best life. I want to have fullness and abundance and depth beyond just I survived that war, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Just that's just me, but
No, I totally get it. I don't, because warrior also to me feels like I agree for sure. But
more.
yeah, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to be like I was hyper vigilant and hyper aroused all the time and ready to fight. Like so I don't know. It's so complex. I think it's
it is.
really interesting too.
It is, and you're right. Absolutely, I think that there can be a lot of interpretations or attachments to the word warrior as like I don't want to be actively fighting this battle anymore. And if
Yeah.
I claim warriorship, is that what I'm saying that I'm still doing? And we wake up every morning with it. I know I do. Like
Yeah.
that's. I think I was trying to sort of speak to that towards the end of the
Yeah.
poem. Oh, it's
Yeah.
living inside of us.
Yeah.
Like it can't. For me, I've never found a way, right, to forget, which is why I write. That's why I'm writing a memoir. That's
Hmm.
why I'm drawn to this work, because these things are inside of me anyway. I might as well try to make art of them or
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah. And
You
I
know?
think for me, because I have lots of self-doubt, I just know that reading has saved my life. And seeing myself reflected on the page when I felt so deeply alone. And
Mm.
so I think like, wow, if I do that for one person, that's enough. And if those people felt their stories weren't worthy, where the fuck would I be?
Yeah.
So um,
Yeah.
you gotta just keep
Yeah.
thinking your story has worth, which is an extension of self, right? And so,
Oh,
um,
and I feel like you're also really talking about paying it forward,
I think so. But you have to
right?
think you have something to pay, right? Like you have to think you are paying it, which is where I get hung up. Like, no, the thing I'm doing has worth. I am paying it forward, but I can get
Yeah,
hung up there with the question of worth.
absolutely. I don't know any writer, at least,
Right. Who isn't doesn't grapple with that on some
yeah,
level. Yeah.
who don't
Yeah.
struggle with self-doubt or a
Mm.
little bit of imposter syndrome or whatever we want to call that. that grip, right? Point of it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, back to your point about you don't ever forget. I mean, I think I gave that up. Like that's on the menu. Forgetting's not on the menu. It's so formative.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a reason we don't forget. There's a
yeah.
reason,
Yeah.
right?
And I've just been having so many more conversations or thoughts about how we privilege perpetrators in this society and how we're so concerned, like if their lives are ruined, which just is, whew, no one's concerned if our lives are ruined. Like, okay. That's, I think, also where the word survivor gets tricky. It's like, well, you survived. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, sure. Okay. Is that enough?
Right.
So, um, uh,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this idea of the function of those memories, what we do with them, um, and yes, even if we have to, and I think we do have to reorient to believing in the worth of the story we're telling
mhm,
over and over and over and over and over
mhm.
again.
And it's part of the reason I created this space was I realized now it was for myself, right? Like I care
Yeah.
about people's stories. I'm engaged with their stories. Oh, probably someone is engaged with mine. There's another person out there because I always want to hear what's
Yeah.
really at the root of people. I think it's fascinating endlessly. So,
Oh, it's why I became a
yeah,
therapist. It's a
yeah.
voyeuristic job in some
Yeah.
months. Like, oh, tell me more.
Right. 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 Tell me the things you're not telling anybody else.
Yeah, let's talk
Well,
about
yeah.
the skeleton closet, the demons under the bed,
Yeah.
the things that you.
Yeah.
There was something
Yes.
I wanted to say that I so appreciate what you've created here.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful. I've never written a poem um using a format like
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
I've never done an exercise
Mm-hmm.
where you have a distinct frame and then you get to stylize
Yeah.
and make it your own.
Yeah.
It was really enjoyable, interesting. It helped kind of stretch me.
Yeah.
Um, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity if you had not created this space, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's wonderful to hear. And I agree. The prompt is like a safety net. Like there's something about it that creates this container that I could go somewhere that I wouldn't have been able to go on my own. So
Yeah.
I am so appreciative of it. And I'm glad you had a similar experience. I wanted to say one other thing about your poem. I was really struck by all of the carpet and the rug imagery. Firstly, just because I remember cigarette burns and holes and how permanent they are. Like that really fucks up your couch or your rug, you know? Like once that happens, it's there. And and things being hidden under the rug and having the rug pulled out from under us and all of those. I don't know, it just made me feel also such a 70s like rugs and carpets. It just
Yeah.
like transported me because I mean
Yeah.
I know there are still places with couches with cigarette burns and I know these places exist. There I'm not frequenting them. So it took me back in time, like ooh, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's definitely something I, I've gotten that feedback before. Like people are just like, oh man, I am steeped in the 70s and 80s
yeah,
now. And because I think I bring in a lot of like
yeah,
culture,
Mickey
media.
D's. Like, does people call it that anymore? You know
Oh,
that kind of yeah,
The cinnamon apple satchel
Yeah.
potpourri.
Oh, satchel, such a great word. You had so many really evocative words. I just felt like they were so embodied. Like I really felt your
Mm,
whole piece was so embodied. I really felt it. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I was always what I'm aiming for, because that's what
Sure.
I out of
Yeah.
a piece reader,
Yeah.
right? It's when it's actually visceral.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. So
Thank
congrats. You
you.
did it.
Yeah, again, a great opportunity, and thank you for meeting me in it
Yeah.
and space.
It
Yeah.
was my pleasure. Truly. And I'm happy to meet you and
Yeah.
hear your poem. And if you have any other last thoughts, I mean, you kind of wrapped up, but if you have any other ones.
Oh, I just this will this experience will endure and it'll stay with me, and that's a
Oh,
gift.
I mean,
So,
that truly, it means so much to me. And also just,
mm,
if I do a little bit to sort of combat that self-doubt and that imposter syndrome, or whatever words we want to use, with people who join me, I feel like that is such a worthwhile use of my time, because I care about people's stories, and this shows them that I do. So I hope you feel that, and I look forward to reading your memoir whenever that is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Note just really
yeah,
quick. You may already, but create a big up bag where you take all those things. I mean, for you, it's a little different, right? Because you have this on
mm-hmm.
video right now. But I do that to counter
Mm-hmm.
the self
Mm-hmm.
and the inner saboteur.
Mm-hmm.
I read
Mm-hmm.
feedback, positive feedback from readers,
Yeah,
editors, right?
yeah,
Who I touched or felt there was a
yeah.
connection.
Yeah, I have a little folder in my email of
Yeah.
praise. I call it praise. Yeah.
Now,
So I just drop them in there. It's funny, I don't even really read them that often, but just knowing they're there is like, oh, it reminds me. Um,
yeah.
and I'm so grateful because I have a life now with people who encourage me and are care, and I just kind of I can acknowledge the self-doubt, but it's like, okay, you're old. This is old. This is a little person, and I love you.
Yeah,
And we're going to do this.
yeah, yeah. A little wounded
Yeah.
exile now.
Yeah.
We have to level
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so healing to do that. Like it has been so healing for me to acknowledge these little younger parts of myself and like say, hey, I see you, like I get it. And we're okay. And pretty much every single one of them is like, I can't believe we're 50. We made it. We're 50. What? So that has also been really interesting too. Like, because when you're little, you're just like, oh, hell, I'm not gonna. 50 is like a million years.
Yeah.
And you really don't think you're gonna make it. So it has been really sweet.
Yeah, that's the path. Collecting all those
Yeah.
parts,
Yep.
integrate.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, well, thank
All right.
you for your time and your poem and your conversation, Shoshana. And when you come up with a perfect word for this, please let me know because it's an ongoing survivor, warrior, freedom
Oh,
fighter. It's like, and
yeah.
part of me is just like, I'm just Allison. I don't need a word, And so there's also that.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Um,
For sure.
so,
If I on
yeah,
something, I'll shoot it.
yes, please do.
All
Okay,
right.
have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye bye.